Hello and welcome. We are in our daily Bible reading this year in the book of Romans. So this week we're going to be reading from Romans chapter 6 and Romans chapter 7. So just want to give you a couple of thoughts to consider as you're reading these chapters for this week. In Romans chapter 6, Paul reminds us, he says, "What shall we say then?" in verse number 1. "Are we to continue in sin so that grace may increase? May it never be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it?" Paul reminded the saints in Rome, certainly this is a great reminder for us, that we should never take for granted God's amazing grace. As Paul would talk about God's grace in Romans chapter 5 and verse number 20, he seems to be continuing this thought here. He said in chapter 5 and verse 20, "The law came in so that the transgression would increase, but where sin increased, grace abounded all the more." As he talked about God's amazing grace, it seems to me he wanted to be very clear that God's grace was not a license to sin, that the saints were not to take it for granted. And the same is true for us. So he says, "What shall we say then? Are we to continue to sin or continue in sin so that grace may increase? May it never be." I believe some translations say, "God forbid." And so that's the mindset that we need to have, that we don't take for granted, we don't take lightly God's amazing grace, and that we don't use it for some kind of license to sin, but that we truly appreciate what it is that we have through His grace. Let's take this to heart. Let's consider who we are as the people of God, that we have, as Paul said, died to sin. So how shall we still live in it? Let's continue to appreciate God's amazing grace and never take it for granted. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook for more content like this.